I'm here at the local neighborhood theater, where a group of 30 CEOs and their mentees, leaders in their organization, are coming together today to watch a screening of the movie The Intern. The film is going to provide the backdrop for an intergenerational discussion about what's happening in today's workplaces, and is what we see in the movies actually the reality of what's happening inside of our offices. I can't wait to hear the dialogue, and I'm glad to be sharing it with you. Is it important to acknowledge those stereotypes because that's often the starting point where people may believe things to be? Like, does mentioning those things in the movie actually help bring the story and the possibility of a seniors intern program into what mainstream would say is reality?
It seems that there are a lot of standard stereotypes that were reinforced about older workers not understanding technology or about being hard of hearing, and younger workers only communicating via text and being casual dressers. So those seem to be reinforced.
I think the oxygen tank, as a perfect example, was there just to make people laugh.
Yeah, that oxygen tank, that waiting room of people applying for the job, right? I mean, that actually is probably the biggest example of something just wrong in the movie, right? That an ad went out and it's for a 50-plus applicant and everyone's on oxygen, and right, reinforcing this idea that longevity is the same thing as aging and decline, right? Which that's actually, from a language perspective, one of the tricky things, that aging actually doesn't mean decline. Right? They're not the same thing, but we associate them.
For the De Niro character itself, just to go back to what some other people have said, I think it kind of romanticized what it would be like to be an older intern. I agree with other people who commented earlier that, you know, the whole scene where he and Anne Hathaway were watching the movie together in bed in California, or San Francisco, I thought, you know, that is so unlikely to happen, and it made it just sound like he was just this genial person who went along with everything and didn't really have an opinion and did whatever she wanted and was there to back her up. You know, I think it starts to bring some of these issues out, but I think everyone in this room, which is a different audience, I think it'd be misleading to think that the average viewer is going to give it much thought beyond entertainment. You know, I've been coming across a lot more information right now about older interns. So I think as a public Hollywood kind of movie, it might at least start to raise the possibility amongst the mainstream viewers, you know, that older adults still have something to give back and contribute. I think it can do that. But for your earlier comment about some of the stereotypes that were reinforced, I'm not so sure that the average viewer will give this much thought.
Right.
To be honest with you. So unless it was in a facilitated kind of conversation like we're having right now, I'm not really sure people will start to think, oh, you know, that really is just reinforcing an ageist attitude. But I think the more we see older adults working alongside younger adults, I think it does at least start to break down at a kind of subliminal level some of those stereotypes.
But it actually reminded me of the movie Working 9 to 5. Because it also did that same sort of thing with all of the characters. And that really did make people start to think about what was happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, and certainly the interest in the last couple of weeks since the movie's come out, in the media, in inquiries and in discussions that have taken place, there certainly has been more dialogue about should we have a senior intern program, maybe not exactly like this one. And what's interesting to me about that is, you know, if every company went out now and started implementing senior intern programs, I mean, that would be awful, because that's not the answer either, right? But starting to think about what really is the best way to harness this talent pool and workforce, how do you structure it, what roles should they have, in a realistic sense, that's a good discussion. And so if this starts that discussion, then I think that's a fantastic tool for the workforce. One of the things that is really important to us at Challenge Factory is that we start good conversations. Right? So if we're in the midst of a talent revolution, if ideas like senior intern programs and looking at the workforce a little bit differently is something that's now a business imperative, if it's one of the most strategic levers that you have inside of your organization to be able to take a look at how you can compete more effectively over the next decade, what we want to do is start as many of those conversations as possible. So what our hope is in having this event today is that really it's just the beginning, and that the homework that was promised both before the movie and actually now is that you think a little bit about what happened here today, and you think about how you might want to start these kinds of conversations inside of your organizations, right? Whether it's with your client base, we have academia represented here, maybe it's with the faculty and the student base to see that within corporations. You know, what is it, without necessarily showing a full-length feature film, how could this become part of your manager training to raise awareness for the fact that, you know, career paths and patterns are changing, and maybe we want to use our workforce in a slightly different way.